Hi there, everyone. I'm Adam Brown, and I'm joined by Emily Wade. This is a video for ALM102 students about the video project. And we're not going to try and cover everything because we could talk for some time. And we're hoping to keep this, what do you reckon, Em, less than 20 minutes?
Hope so.
Hope so. All right. That's usually what we've been able to do. And we've got four main areas we want to talk about because the most important piece of advice that we can give you right from the beginning is to make sure that you read the instructions carefully and reread them and to engage with the essential learning resources, whether they be study notes or videos or blog posts. That might make it sound like there's heaps and heaps of hours that might need to be spent. But if you've been keeping up relatively well, then might not actually be all that much to look into, particularly up to week 8 for the informational video. And we look at the genre of informational videos and give some really good advice in that week. But even in later weeks, that will in part potentially relate to your teaser video, which we'll come to. That's a new component of this assessment task. But what we want to talk about today are 4 things. The focus, which is probably the most frequently asked of all frequently asked questions. The use of source material, the appropriate use of appropriate source material, which is really, really important. And that's something that we, in addition to the need to read the instructions and look at the learning materials, that's something we give a lot of feedback about in assessment generally. So we're going to focus on that a bit. The third thing is the little teaser video. And we'll also talk about the written component in a little bit as well. But yeah, did you want to take it away for that first really frequently confusing area of what can I make the video? What should I make the video on?
Yes, of course. So it's a fairly, I think, because you're given a choice of 3 different areas that you could look at in your video, that it's quite tempting to look at one of those topics and think, well, that is what I'm going to focus on. So whether it's surveillance or VR, AR, all of those sorts of things. But it's really important to actually narrow your focus further than just the weekly topic. So you've been given a statement to sort of start you thinking about your topic, but you really need to drill down further and look at a specific context. So, for example, if you're looking at virtual reality, really look at a particular area where virtual reality is being applied. And that will allow you to narrow your search when you're looking for scholarly sources in the Deakin Library, for example. You'll be able to find highly relevant information that relates specifically to that context. So it could be VR in healthcare, for example, of the many, many, many other choices you could make. And then it will also allow you to find one or several examples that you can talk through as part of your informational video, because those are often what brings your video to life and engages your audience, because they can see some relatable information about those topics. And that means you've covered the theory. You should cover some key definitions that are relevant, but then really take it to an area, thinking of your audience all the time, that will make it interesting for them. Did you have some other advice around those examples, Adam?
Definitely, yeah. And in addition to what you say about, finding some really useful, relevant, specific source material, and you can do that, there might be a context where there's not a great deal of research in that you are looking at, but there are still ways to demonstrate critical thinking by reading about surveillance broadly. There's a lot of books and articles about, different contexts of surveillance and even what surveillance is or what VR is, and even going beyond a definition to really unpack features of immersion or that kind of thing is useful. Obviously, the unit readings are really useful, but they won't tap into the specific examples or little focus area that you're going to look at, but you could still apply something from those readings, something from the general scholarship, the general source material that you've used onto your specific example. So you don't have to find something that's been ultra well researched, but you need to apply ideas to your example. And going beyond, in saying all of this, we don't want you to think you need to give us a really deeply theoretical, essay or thesis like argument. but going beyond a simple definition that you take from an odd source that you grab something from and don't read fully, you know, that's an important part of this as well. And that will demonstrate deeper critical thinking. And you'll be amazed at what you can actually achieve in that regard in a video of this length. Now, in terms of the focus as well, I get a lot of questions about, should I just look at one example or can I look at three? The instructions are broad enough and flexible enough so that you can actually do either of those things without and still conform to all those requirements, still fulfill the requirements of the task. But you don't have to look at more than one specific case study or example. If you look at my VR in education example, I essentially provide what could be mostly thought about as a hypothetical example, but I go into a bit of depth with what that would mean. I use research, I creatively, you know, show all the different competencies that we're looking for in that assignment. That's not to say that video is a concrete example. It doesn't even have speaking to camera footage in that, but it shows a lot of different elements of that making an edited video that still does conform to the requirements. So you don't have to even explicitly say, I am looking at the topic of, and then use your topic statement. We'll know if you're focusing in the right area, because you can't really go wrong if you're talking about surveillance in a specific focused sort of subcontext, or VR or AR or MR. You definitely, as Emily said, don't have to do all of those. Or artificial intelligence, again, like surveillance, there are so many contexts that can be applied in that if you tell us this is what I want to look at, and you can go to your tutor and say, here's what I'm thinking. I mean, here's what I focused on last time. If you like that area, you could certainly go into more depth than in that area anyway. If you tell your tutor, here's my context, this is what I'm thinking of doing, and it fits, you can't go wrong. They're probably going to say yes. But do feel free to get in touch with your tutor if you're at all unsure of what you're doing. Now, the next thing, which is really, really important, and you could have the focus all wrapped up neatly and you've got a great script and you're making the video, you could still go very, very astray with the assignment. And that's in terms of the use of a different kind of source material than scholarly source material. That's with the creative material you can bring into your video. So what have you seen in past years in this and similar units, Em?
So I think it's fairly common for students to initially, before they start exploring the options for Creative Commons licensed material and self-made content, to feel restricted in what they can use. But I think once you start to understand what Creative Commons licenses are and think about the creative opportunities that there are to demonstrate lots of different skills through self-made content as well, it's actually more opportunity than restriction in terms of the requirements there. So the key really is to make sure that you understand what Creative Commons licenses are and to understand how to check material. So you've always got to be critical in your assessment of material, because occasionally you might find something that's been uploaded with a Creative Commons license that maybe shouldn't have been. That's not a really common thing, but it is important to double check and keep a record of everything that you're using to make sure that it does meet the requirements of the assessment, but also that you're using this material legally and ethically, because I think it's important to think outside of the assessment task solely and really think about, at an industry level, when you're out there, either in an internship or in a workplace, you're going to need to be understanding how to find Creative Commons and free to use content legally and ethically. And copyright breaches are expensive, and they're certainly not something that you want to be responsible for. Did you have something else to add to that, Adam?
Only to say that in a different way, essentially, to agree with all that, but to say that really we're simulating real world activity that goes on in various industries every single day of every single year. And if you think about when people want to recruit new people into their organization, and they may want to look at a portfolio, and they certainly won't be as interested in marks and potentially, whether you've done a couple of essays or exams and things, your portfolio will be demonstration of evidence that you understand how to legally, ethically, properly, and creatively make media. And so, you know, don't use movie stills, movie image, game footage, screenshots of different websites or apps. One, because it doesn't fulfill the requirements. Two, because it won't enhance your portfolio all that much. It may even detract from it. But three, because invariably doing that kind of stuff limits the creativity, the creative component of your own media. You're relying on other people's media to a much larger degree. And we've seen, you know, large chunks of movies and that kind of thing be included, which is problematic in one way, but also just lacks creativity because you're letting it do the work for you. Now, to some degree, especially when you're limited in what you can do in space and time and perhaps equipment, Creative Commons licensed material is great to rely on other people's creativity to some degree who have generously provided that to you. Now, I might just share my screen. Now, this is one example of where you can find Creative Commons material, being Vimeo, the YouTube alternative, one of the YouTube alternatives. There are a lot of different sites that the study notes are flagged for images, such as Flickr or Wikimedia, going to the Creative Commons website. You've got video content through Vimeo here. And this is a great example to show that a lot of these sites, I mean, Flickr, you can do it. You can narrow or filter your search down. What's a good category that we could put in here? Just type VR and see what comes up here. This here, if you go on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see refine by, and you click more filters and scroll down, you can see the license. Any license doesn't really help me all that much. But if I want to narrow things down, there's obviously, you can even look at the more licenses there. Let's just say I want to find a simple one where I know that I can credit this. And this is actually one that I've used in the VR so-called example video. This video here doesn't show me very clearly where the license is. And I want to double check that. Just because I filtered the search doesn't mean that I can rely on that filter. I always double check things. But if I click more, and this is where Vimeo holds this, you can see that under every video that has been shared with a Creative Commons license, then you've got that attribution that even gives me a clear indication of what I can do with that. And you know from earlier assessment how to credit the Creative Commons attribution license. Now, that video is a great little one. I didn't use the whole thing. I don't know if I even used any of the audio in it, but I used it to fulfill or to complement some of my narration in this video. And I also wanted to highlight that, and not just in this video, but particularly in this video, there are a lot of examples of how to credit very clearly with all the details in a consistent and accurate way with the links to the original source material, whatever you're using in your video. So that one that I just showed you was Swing, an immersive VR experience. In brackets after that, because I can't create a hyperlink in the video, I've got the URL, which is linked there by the creator, and then the attribution only license. And also ideally put it in your blog post too, just to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and make sure it's everywhere that you need it to be. That's not to say that you have to or you should only use Creative Commons content. It's a great way to demonstrate all the competencies of the unit to get a balance of actually showing I know how to find, use, and credit Creative Commons content, but I also know how to think outside the box creatively, how to make some purpose shot overlay footage myself. And we're not looking for Hollywood blockbuster quality production material, but you can do amazing things, even with your mobile phone, which a lot of these the learning resources in the unit has showed you as well.
That's right. And I think, as Adam mentioned before, the later weeks in the unit beyond week 8, where we've been looking at lots of different contexts for video making, is where you can get some more inspiration on really thinking outside the box and being creative, because we've looked at things like storytelling in micro video, and that's where some of those things will also help to inform your teaser video, which is the next thing we're going to
Perfect segue. Great segue. So I'll be completely upfront. This teaser little video, what was it called in the instructions? It was a teaser promotional teaser video. This video is a new component of the assignment. I've given all of the little details in the instructions I could think of that might be useful to set guidelines in terms of how long it should be, maximum of 30 seconds, how we want it shared, which is embedded in a tweet, which the tweet will be then embedded in your blog post. So we want you to show that skill as well. So not a YouTube upload, although if you wanted, you could put it on YouTube. It's probably a bit short for a YouTube, video generally, but then again, YouTube has its shorts. So we want it embedded in a tweet. It can have some of the content from your existing informational video. So this is obviously, it should prompt you to make an early start on it. It will be hard to make a teaser last minute if you've not really thought out and worked out what the video is going to be itself. But it doesn't have to have that. You can certainly have, we want to see some original content, even if it's voiceover. But I suppose one of the key points to make about this teaser video is that it's nowhere near as substantial or important or as crucial to the mark and result you get as the informational video. So I like to think of this as a nice little extra creative outlet where you can experiment with media making a bit more. And as Emily was alluding to, that could connect with some of our recent topics around micro video, even TikTok, if you were really keen, because as long as you conform to those requirements, and obviously if you did a TikTok video, as organizations can't do, if they want to use TikTok, they can't go and use someone's, something from the top 40, music list. So you want to make sure that you conform to the requirements, but you could use one of those platforms to make a little teaser video. It doesn't have to be going exactly to that 30-second mark. You can make a really dynamic teaser video, micro video, by thinking about some of the things we've been thinking about in recent weeks. We want you overall, above all, to show us what's possible with this extra component. Because we haven't run with it yet until 2021, we haven't seen what students might come up with. And the great thing about this kind of unit, and as we've been, all the years we've been teaching in this way, is that students teach us what's possible through their own creativity. So that's not to put pressure on you, and you don't have to, go out and do something or find something that absolutely surprises us. But we don't want your teaser video to be a spoiler video that's just a summary. You can think of, and I'm sure that everyone's seen teasers these days. There's lots of different ways you can do it. Anything you could add there?
Yeah, no, I think you've pretty much covered it there, but do be creative with this one. And as Adam said, plan it. Don't just think of it as a last minute thing that you've quickly got to get done before you submit. It really should be part of your planning process, just like it would be if you were producing a longer informational video for a brand or company in the real world. Then producing a shorter teaser video that you share across your social media platforms is quite a realistic task that you may have. So really think of it in that way and use it as an opportunity to think about how you can entice your audience to watch your longer video. So that would be the main thing I'd say.
It's been something that I've been thinking for years that I should do every time I make some kind of YouTube video of a substantial length, is to make different content. You even see that being done with podcasts now, where you see the little visualized audio or animated videos for part of a podcast to promote that on other platforms. So this is a really important real world, cutting edge, up to the moment skill that people are still working out, and they will continue to work out how you can do this creatively and in an interesting and engaging way. Now, you don't have to use scholarly source material in the teaser video or anything like that. I'd probably say ideally you wouldn't. Some students have asked, if I've used Creative Commons content in that teaser video, how do I credit that? Now, probably the easiest way would be to put a tweet as a thread under your tweet that shares the video, put another tweet that has the references and the links in. That might be the most appropriate way to do it. My guess would be that any content being used might be also from the informational video, but we don't want to compel you to do that. It doesn't have to be a mini informational video, and it shouldn't be. It should be a creative teaser video. And so don't think of it as you need to go off and do more research and spend days on this, but it also shouldn't be just spending minutes on it, as you rightly said as well. It's not the fundamental part of this task is the informational video. So put the time and energy and effort into that more so. But I think you'll enjoy making this teaser video as well. The last thing, it's almost bad that we talk about it last, because it's often the thing that's thought about last, and often the thing that's done last and done in a very rushed way is the written component. What are your thoughts based on previous years of reading the blog posts?
Yeah, so I think there is a tendency, especially when we see the word reflection or reflective writing, that we sort of revert to this idea that it needs to be, a boring, or at least sort of a blow-by-blow account of I did this and I did that. Writing in the first person is okay, but it's really important to remember that this is a blog post. So it's a blog which is designed to engage a broader audience. So it's not just for your marker to read. Ideally, it's going to be part of your portfolio that Adam mentioned before, that you can use for many different purposes to showcase your skills. And therefore, really approaching it from the perspective of how can I address the key points that are required in the reflection, but make sure it's providing value for other people at the same time. And I think planning for a blog post should be, you may have less elements to think about than what you do for a video, but it should be just as detailed as the process you would go through of planning any other sort of content. So don't leave it till the last minute. Make sure that you're thinking of that broader audience, and really think about the things that you genuinely had to figure out along the way when you're putting your informational video together. If someone else was trying to put together a video for maybe even their brand in a professional setting, how could you help them with that? What insights could you share that would be relevant for them and actually provide value? Give them some ideas for ways they can approach their own video. I think that's really important to keep that industry perspective, and not treating it as something that's simply a personal reflection meant just for you, or just to tick a box in assignment criteria.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, proofread, structure your paragraphs, think about your audience at all times with all the media that you make. Think about it, showing that you have pride in your work. I think proofreading does that. If you've got 3 grammatical errors in the first sentence alone, we don't expect perfection, but if you put in the effort, you've copied and pasted into Word, you check with the spell check, you proofread as carefully as you can, read it out loud, use all the strategies, make it aesthetically engaging to the extent that you're at least not having 2 paragraphs for the entire blog component, which is very difficult to read online for any audience, then that's a really good sign for you if you're moving in that direction. The last thing I'd say in relation to that portfolio question is that one of the most powerful things that we can do is to share with you stories. It's all very well for teachers to tell you that, you can build portfolio pieces that might one day be seen by employers. This kind of stuff works. We've seen this over years and years of doing it. We are currently recording this at 11:13 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Yesterday, a tweet was shared to another unit hashtag where someone has got social media comms work, and they said in this tweet they're really looking forward to putting into practice what the skills that they've been learning in this social media unit. And it was terrific to see. Now, the day before that, another student who, again, has not graduated yet, but is already in the real world because of this, and already before that too, has got a senior communications advisor role for the Victorian COVID response team. And that's before graduation. That's someone who is doing this stuff, getting out there, active online, being visible, being present, building their network, their portfolio, and their professional personal brand. All this stuff that the unit's been talking about has that real world applicability. And it's not too late. Week 11 is not too late. It needs to be only the beginning of anyone in this unit anyway. So, keep that in mind. These stories, these opportunities, despite what you may hear elsewhere, are out there. And people can really make their future by going for it. A little assignment with a deadline is sometimes, it's hard to think about the bigger picture and to step back and think, where am I? But it's really important to be reminded of that. There are a lot of really great student stories out there. And they are telling their own stories too, whether they're making a video about themselves as they did in assignment one, or just making media, which actually says as much about themselves as well. So, keep up the good work. Thank you for joining in on the hashtag, and, look for opportunities, because they really are out there. That's probably a good note to end on, I suppose, Emily. Thank you so much for joining. Have you got any other advice that you'd add?
No, I think you've said everything there. I'd just be repeating the same thing in a slightly different way. So that's perfect.
Probably more briefly, shorter. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. We hope that has helped. Let your tutor, get in touch with your tutor if you've got any questions. We are available, but don't leave it till too late. We often get those literally sometimes minutes before the deadline. We get questions that we're not even going to see until after it. So make an early start. We know everyone is busy, but we've given a lot of flexibility with the learning materials being quite short in recent weeks to focus as much as you can and as much as you want to on the task. So good luck.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.